up, we break down the left side of the LSU infield in 2026. Plus, I give some of my takeaways from Lane Kiffin's time spent with the media yesterday, his first press conference, first time with the media since his introductory press conference on December 1st. Welcome into a brand new edition of the Babin On The Bayou show. I'm your host, as always, Justin Babin Jr. It is indeed Thursday, February 5th, 2026. Thank you, folks, as always, for tuning in. Hope you're having a great week. Hope you're ready to end this week off with a bang on Thursday and Friday. I hope you and yours are doing great. Again, we're going to split the show into two halves. The first half of the show is going to be dedicated to more of our preseason position preview for LSU baseball. Specifically, we're going to talk about catcher, shortstop, and third base. And then the second half of the show is going to be dedicated to some of my takeaways from Lane Kiffin's time with the media yesterday. So let's get right into it by talking about what the catcher position looks like for LSU baseball heading into 2026. Of course, senior Luis Hernandez was the main starting catcher for LSU in 2025, and he played pretty well. He batted .270 with 9 home runs, had some clutch at-bats, some clutch homers in postseason play, if you remember. And, but now that Luis is gone, it turns to LSU sophomore Cade Arrambide, who had a phenomenal fall, was the MVP of fall ball, according to Jay Johnson at the plate. Arrambide, as a freshman, got some action behind Hernandez in 19 starts and 75 plate appearances as a freshman, including hitting 4 home runs as well as a freshman season. He's got a big arm. He's got a good arm, so that helps him behind the plate defensively. And Arrambide can really be a star and step into a star role for LSU in 2026 after a monster showing in fall ball. Again, Jay Johnson says Arrambide was LSU's best player in fall practice, really stepped up as far as quality at bats. Jay Johnson said basically Cade Arrambide was the quality at bat champion of fall ball. When you talk about Arrambide, he's ranked as the 15th best catcher in America coming into the season, according to D1 Baseball. And look, Arrambide got some time as a freshman. We saw some of that power with the 4 home runs, but you've seen a jump in the offseason from his freshman year going into his sophomore year. He had a monster fall ball for the Tigers, and I'm excited to see the development, Cade Arrambide stepping into that starting catcher role for LSU this season, and that's something I'm excited to see after a very impressive fall ball. And behind Arrambide is the new freshman catcher, Omar Cerna Jr. So Omar Cerna Jr., the freshman, he's got really good power. He's got light tower power, similar to Arrambide, and also like Arrambide, both Omar Cerna and Cade Arrambide were former Texas high school players of the year during their high school baseball careers. Cerna was ranked as the 4th best catcher in America coming out of high school. Both Arrambide and Cerna have good size. Arrambide is 6'3", Cerna is 6'2". Plenty of size. They both got great tools. They both hit for power. Arrambide was a star at the plate for you in the fall, and you saw some in the fall. Cerna with that light tower power as well. Cerna is actually already 20 pounds heavier than Arrambide coming into the year as a freshman. And I think at the catcher position, I'm excited to see the jump from Cade Arrambide from a freshman year to a sophomore year after having a great offseason, after really, according to Jay Johnson, seeing some real development from him, especially at the plate in the fall. And then Cerna, again, number 4 catcher in the country coming out of high school. Behind Arrambide and Cerna, you do have a returning Eddie Yaman, who was at LSU last season, and before that, he was a transfer from Dayton. So Eddie Yaman is going to be behind those guys. But excited to see Arrambide develop and see how he's developed from freshman to sophomore year. And then Cerna with his power. Excited to see that early in the season if he gets some time behind Arrambide as well. But Arrambide is going to be the main guy at catcher for LSU. Moving on to shortstop, you have, of course, a returning junior in Stephen Milam. Going to be one of the leaders and veteran captains of this team in 2026. I think we can be honest about Stephen Milam's 2025 in that he did not hit great in the regular season for LSU. It was pretty shaky in the regular season at the plate for LSU. I mean, when you look at it, he only hit a batting average of 211 in SEC play with only a 259 on base percentage, which I believe was both of those numbers were the worst of the team during the 30 game SEC regular season play. So Milam struggled, to be honest, in regular season play, especially in the SEC. On the other hand, he is an elite defender at the shortstop position. Only made 5 errors all year at shortstop for LSU last year. Phenomenal defense played by Stephen Milam all year at shortstop in 2025. And look, something changed at the plate for Stephen Milam entering the postseason because he just, he struggled in the regular season, but he just went on a tear when the Tigers got in the NCAA tournament. In the postseason, Milam batted .385 with 5 doubles, a grand slam, and a team-high 13 RBIs. Milam just raked in the postseason. I don't know what really clicked for him, but man, he struggled in the regular season, but he just started to absolutely pound the baseball in the postseason, and really one of your absolute best postseason hitters, leading you to a national championship in 2025 from Stephen Milam. So look, I think when you talk about Milam coming into the season, is the 5th best shortstop in the nation according to D1 Baseball coming into the year. I think when it comes to Stephen Milam, he's already an elite defender. So that makes his draft stock soar, exponentially, because you want to really have a good arm and a good fielder. Your best fielder, you want them to play shortstop. And Stephen Milam is already an elite shortstop defensively. I think if he can possibly take what he did, he had a monster, he had a monster postseason for you in 2025. If he can take that, what he learned, what he adjusted to in the postseason, maybe some offensive development at the plate also in the offseason. He did have a shaky regular season. We can be honest about that. But if he can transition and take what he learned and what he did in the postseason, he can have a great season for LSU in 2026 and really be a guy who raises his draft stock going into the 2026 MLB draft, because I think he's already a great defender at shortstop, and if he can take what he did at the plate in the postseason and translate it to the regular season for LSU in 2026, look for Stephen Milam to have a great year and shoot up plenty of draft boards heading into the 2026 MLB draft. Behind Milam, 2 incoming freshmen, and Ethan Kloss and Jack Ruckert are the 2 infield freshmen with previous experience at the shortstop position. So freshman Ethan Kloss was ranked as the 37th best shortstop in the nation coming out of high school. Kloss is from Las Vegas. Jack Ruckert is actually a Catholic High product, so from the Baton Rouge area. Was the best player in Louisiana coming out of high school in the 2025 class, according to Perfect Game. Ruckert is also the 14th. He's ranked number 14 on Perfect Game's top 100 freshman list entering this season. So Jack Ruckert out of Catholic High, obviously highly touted coming out of high school. I don't know if any of these guys are going to get much action at shortstop this season because of Stephen Milam. He's going to have that because of his elite defense, and I think he's going to have that position locked down all year as really one of the veteran leaders on this team. But Stephen Milam, again, he already has the elite defense, and everybody knows that. But if he can translate the bat that we saw in the postseason to the start of this season and continue it, look for Stephen Milam to have a monster season. Excited for him. And then let's move to after that, let's move to third base. And at third base, it looks like it's going to be, at least to me, Oregon State transfer Trent Caraway. Looks like the guy who's going to be the starting third baseman, at least to begin in the season for LSU. So Trent Caraway batted .281 over 2 seasons at Oregon State with 20 doubles, 14 home runs, and 57 RBIs. He was voted the 2025 NCAA Tournament Corvallis Regionals Most Outstanding Player. I mean, Caraway, his season was kind of similar to Milam in that Caraway didn't live up to expectations offensively in the regular season for Oregon State in 2025. He wasn't great at the plate for Oregon State in 2025 in the regular season, but he just raked once he entered the postseason. I mean, his postseason was absolutely dominant. He hit 6 home runs in the NCAA tournament in 2025, which broke the Oregon State school record for most home runs in a single postseason. That eventually led Oregon State to a College World Series appearance in Omaha in 2025. So again, didn't have a great regular season at the plate, did Trent Caraway, but when it came to the postseason, I mean, 6 home runs in the postseason, he was absolutely lights out and raking at the plate. Was Trent Caraway in the postseason in 2025 for Oregon State. So kind of similar 2025s between both Steven Milam and Trent Caraway. Both struggled in the regular season. Both really turned it on, especially at the plate in the postseason. Caraway is 6'2", a little bit over 200 pounds, so he has the frame to play. Plays pretty decent defense at third base as well. He can also hit for power as well, hitting those 6 bombs in the postseason for Oregon State in 2025. Look, I see good potential in Trent Caraway being really good for you in 2026. I think he's going to hit near the bottom of the order, maybe 7th or 8th in the order to start the year. I think there's a lot of potential in Caraway. I know that he and Jay Johnson have worked on some offensive tweaks, some changes to his swing in the offseason. So hearing that, the adjustment to SEC pitching and SEC caliber play while you're going through a swing change a little bit and some tweaks to his swing, that is kind of, not concerning, but it's something to watch out for, I think. But look, I think Caraway is going to be your starting third baseman, and I do like him. And I think he has potential in the world. I think he's going to get, by all reports, he's going to get drafted at some point in the MLB draft because of his power. But I think, he could have gone in the draft potentially last season. But I think Caraway said in a press conference last week that he was disappointed with how his season at Oregon State played out in 2025 offensively in the regular season. So wanted to come back, wanted to transfer into LSU and put a final season of college ball together and get ready for the MLB draft. So I think Caraway has plenty of potential. That swing change, monitoring, trying to fix his swing a little bit mechanically. That's a little bit something to keep an eye on, but he's going to be your starting third baseman to start off the season. And then, I think after him, John Pearson, the younger brother of Josh Pearson, has lost some weight. He's lost some weight in the offseason, kind of slimmed down, trimmed down. He got 21 at-bats as a freshman in 2025, mostly against left-handed pitching with 2 home runs. Transfers in both Seth Dardar and Braden Simpson do have previous experience at third base in college baseball, but they haven't really played any third base at all since they've been at LSU. So I'm going to talk about Dardar and Simpson for tomorrow, because I think tomorrow Dardar and Simpson are going to come more into play at second base, first base, and DH potentially than they will at third base. I think third base is going to be where Caraway slots. I do think you're going to see a lot of Seth Dardar and Braden Simpson this year, but I don't think it will be at third base, so I think we're going to save the discussion for them for tomorrow. But overall, quick recap. At the catcher position, I really like that what Cade Beatty did in the fall as your fall ball MVP. Basically, excited to see him transition from his freshman year to his sophomore year and hopefully step into a leadership role on this team. Excited to get Steven Milam back. Already a phenomenal defender at shortstop. Had a struggle, in the regular season at the plate, but really turned it on, batting .385 for you in the postseason in 2025. One of your best hitters throughout throughout the postseason in 2025 was Stephen Milam. If he can carry that over to 2026, he can have a monster season indeed. And then Trent Caraway, similar to Stephen Milam, the Oregon State transfer, had a shaky 2025 regular season at the plate, but really turned it on in the postseason with 6 homers in the NCAA tournament for an Oregon State team that eventually made a trip to Omaha. So I think I'm excited to see this infield. Excited to see you have a bunch of transfers here. We'll get into 3 more transfers that you got that are going to factor into this infield when we talk about it tomorrow. But yeah, I think you have some good pieces here. Aaron Beatty is the one I'm looking at because of all the reports of his success, massive success, pounding the baseball in fall ball, and then excited to have Stephen Milam back as one of the leaders of this team entering 2026 with his veteran experience. Already over 125 starts in his college career in the past 2 seasons at LSU, and I'm excited to see Stephen Milam, Monster Milam, back again. And then Trent Caraway is going to be another interesting guy. I think Trent Caraway has plenty of potential. I think it'll be interesting to see that swing change and how that adjusts and how he adjusts to SEC pitching entering 2026. But that is my LSU baseball preview position breakdown for today. Tomorrow we're going to go over DH, first base, and second base, and that'll round out this week of covering and doing our preseason position by position breakdown. Let me take the time now to tell you about our wonderful daily sponsors of the Babin On The Bayou show over at Shield Heating and Cooling. And I've talked about it before. You're talking about a team of experts with multiple decades of experience as experts in the AC industry. And I absolutely love my audience. I love you guys for always faithfully tuning into the show. I want to reward you for that and give something away to you guys as a sign of my gratitude for you always tuning into the show. So if you call the best team in the business over at Chilled Heating and Cooling today at the number 225-46-BAYOU. That's 225-46-BAYOU, B-A-Y-O-U. You tell them you heard about them. Tell the team at Chilled Heating and Cooling you heard about them from the Babin On The Bayou show. I'll be giving away free AC system clean and checks for every AC system in your home. Whether you have 1 AC system in your home or 4 or 5 AC systems in your home, it doesn't really matter. Call the best team in the business today over at Chilled Heating and Cooling at that number again, 225-46-BAYOU, B-A-Y-O-U, to take a part in this amazing giveaway, completely free, of no cost to you. A sign of my gratitude to you guys for always faithfully tuning into the show. Again, that is 225-46-BAYOU, B-A-Y-O-U. And that's Shield Heating and Cooling, your local comfort defenders. And we greatly love them and appreciate them for being the title sponsors of the Babin On The Bayou show. Alright, so now let's get into some of my takeaways from Lane Kiffin's time with the media yesterday in his first press conference since his introductory press conference in early December after being named as the Tigers' new head coach. And I thought overall Kiffin did a great job, of course, but I think the main thing is he opened up the press conference by commending his staff and commending all of the guys that he brought in for really adjusting to the first couple months and bringing this roster in and helping him bring this roster in and assemble the team. Because you got to think, of course, most of his offensive staff at least had to pull double duty for the first month and a half because they had to work for LSU and help LSU in building this team out for 2026. But they also had to go back and help coach Ole Miss through their playoff run, getting to the college football playoff semifinal. So he started by commending his staff. He did say, Kiffin has ultimately said that on paper, this might be the best transfer portal class that we've ever seen in the history of college football in the portal era. However, the main thing I love, the number one thing I loved, and we're going to go through a bunch of different things here, but the number one quote and saying of Kiffin that I loved was he talked about how all of these coaches he brought in, all these transfer portal players he brought in have big salaries. It's the world we live in, college football world we live in, with big salaries and big money going to these players and these new coaches. And he's really trying. He talked about it with him yesterday in a team meeting before this press conference, and he's really trying to get across to them that they're not getting that salary because of what they've already done. Which, of course, they kind of are, right? They kind of are. But because you look at their past experience of a guy like Jace Brown, guys like Sam Levitt at Arizona State, guys like Eugene Wilson, Prince William, Miami. So, yes, it is partly because of what they've done at their past universities, of course. But he wants to say, he's been telling his team and driving the point home that, that salary, you have to go out and earn that every day. You're getting that salary because of what you're supposed to do, what you're expected to do now as a Tiger at LSU. And I love that because obviously I think college football has become very individualistic as far as players just going out to get a bag, going out in the portal and doing all that and stuff. So like the team camaraderie and team chemistry is not always there. But I love that Kiffin's like, yes, you're a player, you're a coach, you have these big salaries, but now you got to go out every day and you got to earn it. You got to put in the work. You were given that salary, yes, because of your past experience and past success in college football, but also because of what you're supposed to do, what your expectations are now that you are a Tiger and playing for LSU in 2026. I love that point because Kiffin said on paper, this might be the best portal class ever. But you have a lot of work to do. It's not just, it's a team game for a reason. You bring all this talent in, and LSU is extremely talented, but now they have to gel, they have to develop team chemistry, they have to bond together as a team, and they have to go out and earn their keep every single day. I love that. I really do, and I think that's a sentiment that players need, especially nowadays in college football. Is to say, yes, you got this big salary, and yes, we do live in an individualistic era of college football where team chemistry and team camaraderie have kind of taken, gone on the back burner, at least in my opinion. But really driving home that point of no, now you got to gel with your team, you got to build chemistry, and you got to earn your keep, earn your worth. You're getting paid all of this money, and earn it now that you are a Tiger at LSU. Kiffin did also talk a little bit about starting quarterback Sam Levitt, who, as expected, will be limited in spring practice for LSU. Kiffin said that Levitt will throw and participate in 7-on-7s, but he won't participate in any of the team stuff yet, according to Kiffin in the spring. Again, most of that was expected. The hope is that when you look at his Liz Frank injury, the hope is that by early August, when fall camp starts, Sam Levitt will be a full go, and then subsequently he will be a full go for week 1 in Tiger Stadium, September 5th against Clemson. But it does open up room for the backup quarterbacks and Hassan Longstreet and Landon Clark to get a ton of reps with the 1s and the 2s in the spring and develop. They're both young guys. They're both immensely talented athletes, but now that they get to develop under the tutelage of Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. and company. So it is unfortunate that Sam Levitt's not going to get the opportunity to work with the team in the spring, except for, he'll be able to throw and participate in 7-on-7s, but not much more after that, right? But I think Sam Levitt has plenty of experience. He knows what he's doing at this point. He has plenty of experience as a great starting quarterback at Arizona State. And it opens up time for guys like Hassan Longstreet and Landon Clark to develop, to learn, and to get a lot of reps with the 1s and the 2s in the spring. Kiffin was also asked about his persistence in flying to meet prospects and guys like Jordan Seaton and Sam Levitt, and he talked about how, he was asked about, going to meet Sam Levitt in a Knoxville airport, going to meet Jordan Seaton in the middle of Atlanta after his visit. And I love this quote. He talked about Kiffin talked about he doesn't take no for an answer well. He's a very competitive guy, and if he gets a no from a guy, if he gets a no from someone, that just makes him hungrier. That just makes him more competitive. And Kiffin was like, I don't take no great for an answer. And then one quote that Kiffin had is, everything I do is for the players, coaches, and fans. My job is to sign the best players. If that means I have to get on a plane and find a guy in the Knoxville airport, so be it. It's how I work. And I love that because if you're being honest, from all reports with Brian Kelly, sometimes with Brian Kelly during his time at LSU, it didn't seem like BK was fully invested in getting the job done. He did a lot of delegation, delegate. BK wouldn't get on a plane to go see a recruit after a visit. BK wasn't that guy. And it just seems like Lane Kiffin loves football. He's competitive. He's hungry. He wants to get it done and get it done big at LSU and build LSU back up into the national powerhouse that they're supposed to be. And I love the sentiment. I love that you have a coach that's willing to, hey, we did this visit, in Baton Rouge. I'm going to go visit Sam Levitt for an hour conversation more in the Knoxville airport between visits to Tennessee and Miami. I'm going to go see Jordan Seaton again after he came to LSU because I want to get these guys, and I'm not taking no for an answer. And I love that fire. I love that passion. I love that competitive spirit, and having that in Lane Kiffin is a plus. He also shouted out the consistency from Blake Baker and defensive backs coach Corey Raymond and what they've been able to do at LSU. Lane Kiffin replaced pretty much all of the offensive staff, but chose he wanted to retain Blake Baker, Corey Raymond, and most of the defensive staff. And he talked about we've talked about it before. Look at how atrocious the LSU defense was in 2023. They were really, really bad. And in 2 seasons, Blake Baker and Corey Raymond and that defensive staff, in 2 seasons from that terrible defense you saw in 2023, took them to, in 2025, a top 25 overall defensive unit in the nation. And that is a testament to the great Blake Baker. And then Corey Raymond, when asked about Corey Raymond in particular, Kiffin said it was a no-brainer. He said it was a no-brainer to keep Corey Raymond because Corey Raymond's a guy where you can recruit prospects to Corey Raymond. It's not just recruiting prospects to Lane Kiffin or to LSU. You can recruit defensive backs to Corey Raymond because of what he's done as far as development, as far as, I call him the architect of DBU all the time, and he is, and I love that because Corey Raymond, I think the biggest mistake, one of them that BK made among many, was letting Corey Raymond go when he came here in 2022. How do you let that guy leave the building? And Lane Kiffin was like, no, it's a no-brainer. Of course we're keeping Corey Raymond. Of course we're keeping the architect of DBU. And I love that because that was my number one wish, is who I wanted you to keep. I wanted you to keep Blake Baker and Corey Raymond, and you kept both of them. And then he talked about a little bit about he and his staff's evaluation process, of how that's their area of expertise, how some players that were previously on LSU's roster chose to transfer from LSU, and some players, Lane Kiffin and his staff chose to let transfer and leave LSU. You had 30 plus LSU players enter the portal and leave the Tigers, but you gained 40 plus back via the transfer portal and the staff's evaluation as well. So that's a big part of this. It's not just, of course, you signed 3 of the top 5 overall transfer prospects in the country in Jordan Seaton, Prince William Monmielen, and Sam Levitt. It's also the other 37 guys. It's a guy like Zach Grace, who's going to be an inline running blocker mainly for you in 2026. It's guys like that, and it's not just the top 3 that we talk about in Seaton and Monmielen and Levitt. It's about, okay, this staff prides themselves on the evaluation process. And we're not going to be able to really see that play out fully until the season starts in September, but it's something they pride themselves on, and they did a heck of a job of doing it at Ole Miss, or as Lane Kiffin said, the other place, the previous place. He refused to name Ole Miss yesterday. He said the previous place. I thought that was kind of funny and interesting. Kiffin talked about how important it was to sign 5 stars Lamar Brown and Richard Anderson in December. Originally, Brown and Anderson were questioning if they were going to hold out and not sign with a program until February's signing day. But Billy Glasscock, the general manager for LSU, and Lane Kiffin had a bunch of conversations with Richard Anderson and Lamar Brown during the early signing period window in December, and both of those guys ultimately chose to stay with LSU and to commit and sign with LSU in December. He said, imagine not signing those guys and having to wait for those guys' decisions until 2 months later in the month of February. That was something that Kiffin talked about. And Kiffin also said LSU recruited guys like Lamar Brown and Richard Anderson. At the time, when those two guys committed, there wasn't a defensive line coach on staff yet. Sterling Lucas was not yet here as the defensive line coach on staff. But those guys, because of the culture, because of the power, because of the program, because of the atmosphere of LSU, because of who LSU is as a program, those guys decided to commit and buy into LSU and what Lane Kiffin was preaching anyway. He talked about how important it is, his relationship with him and Billy Glasscock, the new LSU general manager, who was Lane's general manager when he was at Ole Miss. And Lane talked about how, he looked at the best franchises in the NFL and the cohesion that those franchises have between the general manager and the head coach, and he wanted to bring that to college football, and he has that with GM Billy Glasscock. I mean, they go hand in hand, they trust each other, they know each other very well, and they work alongside together as a tandem for the betterment of LSU. They did the same thing at Ole Miss, and he talked about how important it was to have Billy Glasscock here as a general manager with him like he was at Ole Miss. And then the last thing is that Kiffin talked mainly about, yes, there is a bunch of talent on the offensive line. Haven't been able to coach them yet. So there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered on this offensive line. We kind of already knew that. You bring in Jordan Seaton, the best offensive lineman in this portal class, one of the best linemen in the country, a first-round pick in the 2027 NFL draft next year, You retain Braylon Moore, Weston Davis. You bring in guys like Devin Harper, Sean Tompkins, Darren Stray, like all of those guys. You bring in all of those guys. Aluba from Maryland, but these next few months, especially for the offensive line, is going to be key in terms of development, in terms of improvement, in terms of gelling, because it's 5 guys working together on the offensive line, obviously, and that makes the offensive line different and more difficult to talk about than anything else right now, because you got to go in and you got to coach those guys. And I'll be interested, and that's what I'll be paying attention to is the offensive line, because I think in terms of skill positions, quarterback, running back, tight end, wide receiver, you have all the guys you need. You have all the guys you need at the skill positions to be successful. Pay attention to that offensive line, how they develop, how they play in spring practice, in fall camp, leading up to the season. That'll be something that I'll be keeping an eye on for the months and months to come. But overall, I think Kiffin did a phenomenal job. It's just he's passionate, man. Like, he's intentional. He's involved in everything that's going on. It felt like Brian Kelly wasn't involved in everything that was going on with LSU. I mean, we all heard the reports about BK being out on the golf course too much during the offseason, not in the office enough. We heard that. We heard that for years while Brian Kelly was here. That's not the problem with Lane Kiffin. This guy is intentional. He's involved. He knows everything that's going on, and I cannot wait for I think it's going to be one of the most highly anticipated regular seasons for LSU football that we've ever seen. I mean, the hype around this regular season coming up in September is going to be insane, folks. And I cannot wait for it, and I thought Kiffin did a great job in his press conference yesterday, showing his involvement, his intentionality, and his passion and competitive spirit for the game of football, and now to be the guy, to be the head man at Louisiana State University. Last thing, don't forget tonight, Huge top 5 game for LSU women's basketball, traveling on the road to play at Texas in a top 5 matchup. That is at 8 p.m. tonight on ESPN. Thursday night, big game, big game. I'll be excited for that one. We will definitely cover that and talk about it on the show tomorrow. We will also talk about, we'll finish out our position preview. We'll talk about first base, second base, and what I think who could factor in as a DH, in a DH role as well. But that is pretty much all I have for this Thursday, February 5th edition of the Babin on the Bayou show. I thank you folks so much, as always, for tuning in. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate and love all of you guys. Thank you folks so much for tuning in. Remember, like the video, share the video, tell a friend about the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not subscribed already, and remember, God bless, go Tigers, and have a great one.